Glorious morning, Pythians. We're live.
Are we?
Yes, we are. Excited for this one. Another big one on a big Wednesday. Wormhole Wednesdays. I heard they were at some point. But no, on the Pyth side, big announcement from Korea, where we had Mike introducing Pyth Pro, the latest institutional product that went through governance and now finally live. Big day.
Big day. And what I kind of liked it is that I woke up this morning and all was done already.
No work to do.
No work to do. Almost like, okay, I can go back to bed. Job's done. Job's finished, actually, boys. No, but very exciting. And like, I mean, the governance vote passed over the past week. And I guess we might talk about it after at some point around the community council getting extended for another 6 months, but that's maybe more like end of stream topics we can dive on.
Yes.
But no, it's very cool to see this going forward, and very much like till now was very hard to kind of position like how is Pyth different than other oracles. Still many are like push versus pull, etc., but actually it's a nightmare just being stuck in those discussions, because pull is the best, we all know that. But Pyth is more than just infra. Pyth is data. And so that Pyth Pro that's selling data off chain, on chain, wherever you need it for whatever asset from whatever country you want is actually, I think, super cool. So yeah, B2B SaaS now.
B2B SaaS. And still Pyth Core for all of DeFi. And it's good that we have Robinson, because Wormhole is one of the key unlock for Pyth to be sending to 107 mainnet chains, I think it is right now. A few more test nets, but no, it's going to be a good one. And I'm going to just have Rob on. G Worm Pyth, sir.
G Worm Pyth, what's up, gentlemen? It's good to see you guys.
Very good to have you on, Rob. Super excited for this one because you guys have been cooking a lot recently as well. So I'm personally very pumped to have you on, and I'm very happy to have Mike here besides me because I think you guys know each other since pretty much genesis of the projects and so on. So it's going to be super cool to have both your insights into Wormhole, Pyth, the relationship, the work together, and what you guys imagine for the future of data and institutions. So I'm super excited for this one.
Well, can I just start by saying congrats on Pyth Pro? That's huge. What is that saying? I've been seeing this stuff on Twitter as well from Mike. It's like you either live long enough to become a hero or you die, or you become B2B SaaS or something. I'm botching it, but anyway, I think it's an exciting direction, especially as you think about revenue recognition and things like that becoming really important in crypto. So really happy for you guys. Big win.
W's for the Pythians.
W's in the chat.
But thanks a lot, Rob. But no, to kickstart off on an easy one, can you tell us a bit about yourself, your background, and maybe how you got into crypto originally?
Yeah, my initial crypto moment, which maybe like tells people my age, but I bought a fake ID with Bitcoin. I don't remember exactly the year, but I'm in the US, you can't drink till you're 21. So I obviously grew up in the US. And fake ID culture was a pretty big thing. So at the time you could only buy them. There was this website called what was it called? ID Chief, and you could buy it with Bitcoin. So anyway, that was like my initial moment. Nothing happened for a while after that. And then in 2017, I was at I had always worked in kind of startup culture, I guess you could say. So I worked with some failed, some were successful. I ended up at DoorDash in San Francisco. This was like 2016, 2017, and I started mining Ethereum. This is obviously back in the day when Ethereum was proof of work, not proof of stake consensus. So I was mining Ethereum. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm making money for just making sure these servers are up and running. This is great. And then that was kind of my pill moment into everything else. It actually didn't start with Bitcoin for me. And from there, things were going pretty well at DoorDash. I've actually hired a lot of DoorDash people to the Wormhole team because they're really good operators and executors. But things were going really well, and I didn't really want to go into crypto full time quite yet. So I waited a few years, and then we had the IPO, et cetera. And I looked around and I was like, who's doing really well in crypto? Like who's one of the main players, and it was Jump Crypto. At the time at Jump, it was very much so like the ground floor for a lot of things, right? Whether it's trading, whether it's VC investments, and also building, right? So that's kind of like how I got kind of into everything. And since then, I guess the rest is history. It's been a blur of the past, I don't know, 4 years or something like that. So, but yeah, somewhere along the way, Mark and I obviously met. We've shared journeys all around the world as those in crypto do. Yeah, it's been great. And honestly, the Pith and Wormhole relationship, I think, has just grown stronger over the years, which is great to see. Because there's a world where we could have both kind of come out of Jump in a way, and that relationship separated. And I think we've done on both sides done a good job of keeping it strong, and it can be mutually beneficial for both protocols.
One thing around Pith, like in the recent presentation, and many people, we were always comparing like financial data / Pith data as like electricity. You don't see it, you don't think about it, but when you don't have it, you're kind of cooked. And like both Wormhole, like Pith usage of Wormhole, and just other protocol just relying on directly on the Wormhole or directly on Pith is just exactly this. And it's crazy how, say, in the past 4 years, it was like front, left, right. Okay, how does this work, etc., etc. Now almost no one cares. They just assume it works, etc. So it's kind of still mind-boggling, kind of for me. As in, okay, we don't get so many questions nowadays compared to early days.
Yeah, I actually think that drives the, and NFA. We'll start by saying all of that, but I think the like middleware infrastructure category in crypto is actually like very undervalued. I think one of the core reasons why is that you actually don't. It's sometimes harder for people to value things that don't entirely see. And it's this to your point, Mark. It's like this infrastructure just running in the background to make sure everything works, and you don't really realize it until something's broken. And I think look, the category is finding, I think like broader infrastructure middleware is kind of finding its I would say legs in a way. Like a lot of people started to realize like how valuable this is, especially as there are more chains, right? Pith becomes more valuable, Wormhole becomes more valuable. But the fact that you can't really see it, it's like this thing behind the scenes, I think works against it sometimes. And maybe some people would see that as an opportunity. But yeah.
And from my perspective as well, now I feel lots of Pith, Wormhole were pure, I'd say, crypto blockchain infra. Like Wormhole, you connecting blockchains, Pith bringing prices on chain. Now it feels like more and more, I guess, with the TradFi coming, institutional interest. Both projects are well, I don't say pivoting, but using what we've learned, building the tech and so on, to really, I guess, help bridge the gap and do something broader than just crypto as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I mean, you guys have like one of the biggest announcements I've seen really, and or the biggest integrations I've seen really in the space as it pertains to institutions with working with obviously the US government. But yeah, I think for us, like we've really found our niche, one of our niches at least, in that we've kind of cornered the market, especially as it pertains to tokenized assets. So when we think about these institutions, they coming on chain, they want to be on all the chains, right? They don't want to be just on one. And Wormhole is what kind of helps them be across all these different chains. So I think once you can have a lot of success in one area, like Pith, you guys have had just so much success, obviously within the price feeds business. It's helpful, or it's easier to then expand out your kind of from your core business. And I think it's cool to see kind of both of us doing that at the same time. I know for us, like we're really interested in front ends, and we can talk more about that later maybe, but a lot of people that are listening maybe have used Portal Bridge at some point in the past, and apologies if you used it like any time 2 years plus past ago because it was dog shit. But it's come a long way, and there's a lot more we're gonna do with it. So I'm pretty excited about that.
I'm in this sentence and I don't like it.
that.
No, I mean, sincerely, it was very much, and I mean, this is where also you see that we kind of grew up, and while we are laggards compared to some guys that arrived 10 years ago, I mean, it's still the trenches today because like, it's not easy to bridge everywhere still.
It's not. It's not.
But, yeah, it's crazy the journey from. But 4 years ago, actually, Portal, while compared to today, was less polished. It was still pretty good. It was maybe just the multi approval that wasn't that sexy, etc. But cost wise, I think it's still one of the cheapest bridge I've ever used ever.
Yep. And I think just as we're talking about, like Pepito mentioning us getting into other things, obviously you guys getting into institutions, us getting institutions. One thing we realized that's just super important is front ends, right? Like the portal in particular does bridging really well, but why can't it do more? Why can't it do same chain swaps? Obviously, perps are just having their moment in the sun. I don't think that's really going to go anywhere. Maybe volumes will go up and down based on market sentiment, but like that to me is really interesting. Is like there's this infrastructure business and then there's this front end business, and then where the two cross over. Obviously, again, there's a huge institutional focus, but we want to make Portal if in everything app, and I think we've got a lot of good plans to do that.
And as we start talking Wormhole products, I'd like to take a step back, and so you can, introduce us and the people watching. What's Wormhole? Some of the key products you guys have, like Portal that you just mentioned, so we can just be all up to par on what's going on.
Absolutely. Thanks for pulling us back here a little bit. I know that Pith and Wormhole have a lot of community crossover, so maybe some folks tuning in, you've maybe heard me kind of explain some of this, but I'll breeze over at least the beginning, and then we can get into some of the good stuff and some of the updates. But Wormhole at its core is a messaging protocol. What the category is called interoperability. It's kind of like a big word in a lot of ways, unsexy word, if you will, but it's also not new, right? Interoperability is a core problem a core component that needs to happen in all other industries, right? In the US, we have healthcare hospitals where all your data, you go to this hospital, your data's here, and you go to this hospital, your data's here, but you need like the data to be combined to give you the best care, right? Or even the banking system, look at it, right? Like if I have I don't know, we have like a Wells Fargo here, someone uses Chase, and then someone uses Novo Banco in Portugal, blah, blah, blah. You need a way for those banks to communicate. That concept is just interoperability. How do you interoperate with one another? And blockchains are no different. Blockchains are these systems that just can't interoperate with one another. And so Wormhole is the way is almost a translation layer, if you will. Once you can build that baseline infrastructure, you can build really useful things on top of it. A useful thing is why we're here today is Pith, very useful thing. Another useful thing is asset transfers, right? That's probably the core of our business is sending assets, or a lot of people, back when Mark and I were coming up in this space, just called it bridging. A lot of people still call it bridging, but I think it's evolving a little bit more. But like bridging in general is like enabled by this ability to communicate between chains. Another example is we work with WorldCoin. They have an ID. It lives on Ethereum, but they want other apps on other chains to be able to use it. We can help that happen. So Wormhole at its core, it is this ecosystem of infrastructure, and then it has a few kind of core things it does really well. So that's maybe how I would explain it at a high level. But it sits between the chains. I think is kind of an important mental model.
And what's valuable in between the chains? So we mentioned token transfer, data transfer, and I guess just data is the biggest part because there is trillions type of data. You mentioned medical data, went to the financial data, yes, any type of data.
Yeah, it's all at the end of the day, it's all like data payloads, right? Like even like your tokens are it's just, hey, Mark, burned 100 USDC on say and wants 100 native USDC on Solana. like that is a data transfer. So it's your financial data, to your point. But yeah, anything you can unlock any use case if you could just send data, because you can dictate actions, right? So when you think about a developer building something, you can send data. You're dictating an action in a way, and so you can just build really anything: multi-chain money markets, yield aggregators, multi-chain dexes, oracles, ID, bridges, and so on. So it's pretty critical in that way.
And is there, it almost feels one of the biggest other vertical is then maybe exposing all this blockchain data just beyond blockchains. How do
Yes.
you, is it something on your mind at Wormhole?
Um,
Or
at
am I just
some
describing the
point,
graph pretty much?
sorry, say it again.
Or am I just describing an indexer and arguably you don't want to go into the indexing world?
In a way, right? Like we have built Wormhole Scan, which we had to index our own data for, which is kind of a cool. If you've never used it, wormholescan.io, it's kind of a cool way to see data across all chains. I know a lot of different companies are getting into the data game, like Blockworks, etc. But we use it for like Wormhole specific stuff. I think the thing with Wormhole that's interesting is there's no shortage of potential ideas. There's two things we always need to consider. One, are we competing with our customer? And then two, do we have enough resources to execute on it better than someone else? So for instance, I'll just give an example, we'll toss out an idea one time. So Wormhole launched its own stablecoin. Like we're really good at making that stablecoin everywhere. But at the end of the day, like we'd be competing with all of our core customers. Stablecoins make up, I don't know, 40% of, maybe even more of Wormhole flows. And so we compete with our customer. Or like, should we do offer data off chain? There's like a lot of people that work with us pretty closely that do that too. And how much money can we make off that, et cetera. So I think it's there's always like kind of those two questions we're thinking about is like, are we competing with the customer? Can we do it better than them? And then do we have the resources? So it hasn't been something we've there's a lot of other things in line before that, let's just say, to that would come prioritized or be prioritized.
That's super interesting. And I guess you mentioned a bit some of the big updates. One that I think caught a few eyes last week was W 2.0, the upgraded tokenomics, I believe it is named. Lots to unpack there. Can you take us through, okay, what does this mean for Wormhole?
Absolutely. So W 2.0, as we're calling it, I'll try to like simplify it. It has 3 core components, and all of this was born out of really listening to the community and the token holders, of which there are a lot of now. And the 3 components are unlock optimization. I'll get into exactly what that means. Starting to offer some yield in the reserve. Unlock optimization is, I think, an important one. And so if you think about Wormhole's been around actually in October for 5 years. We were one of the few protocols, I think you guys are another good example. We had a lot of usage and users before we launched the token, right? Like most people in crypto, they like launch the token and then they get the users, right? We all familiar with this, or they try to get the users. And so we had been building for a long time, and we actually originally designed the tokenomics very early on. And it was kind of like FTX era, Serum era, which I know, Mark, you're very familiar with. And the tokenomics like meta or narrative back then was essentially to have these massive unlock cliffs. And then during the unlock cliffs, you would kind of, you'd announce something or like figure out a way to like help reduce the sell pressure. And Wormhole had the same kind of tokenomic schedule. And I think what happens when you have something like that is you have this really predictable, massive amount of market pressure or downward pressure on your token. And it's actually hard for the token to find its like true value because you have this kind of massive pressure working against it. And so what we did was we actually extended the investor and validator agreements by 6 months. So they're actually locked up for 6 months longer, which is of course beneficial. I think a lot of retail and investors would want to see kind of that longer term alignment. But at the same time, we fixed the unlock. So instead of its 1 year cliffs, every 2 weeks. So you go from you go from a graph of like boom, 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 like stairs to just, or I'm going the wrong way, to gradual. It's just gradual, right? And so the sell pressure is just a lot less. And so that's number one. That was like a big, I think that is a sleeping giant, actually. I think that's what people aren't as excited about, but I think that's gonna like one of the more important pieces. The second one was offering some kind of like base yield. So Wormhole, obviously you guys have, I think it's OIS it's called. I don't exactly remember, but staking. And so we have kind of governance staking, and we're going to include a few more things in that on as it pertains to Portal. And so if you stake, obviously you stake for governance today, but tomorrow we're going to make Portal the next decentralized Binance. You heard it here first. You can have cheaper fees, etc., if you stake. And so by doing that, we have an allocation of, the foundation as a community allocation. And over time, we're confident we can give about a 4% base yield. That's base yield, not including points, etc., you get from Portal Earn. So that was the second thing, right? We're answering the question of why hold this token, or why invest, or why be an ecosystem participant. One, you hope the project goes up because it's doing well. And then two, you have all these passive benefits. And then finally, and I'm sure we'll go into each of these a little bit more questions, is the W reserve, right? As we start to make revenue, we want to start buying back the token and showing our long-term alignment. And so we launched the reserve based on feedback. I think, we'll definitely, I think there's like a interesting thing happening in the market where a lot of the perp dexes are giving unrealistic expectations for all the other protocols in terms of buybacks and fees. But I think we want to put our best foot forward and show that, like, hey, for the fees we do start to make, for the revenue we do start to make for this like valuable product we built over 5 years, we want to share a meaningful amount to buy back W. Will we share that with the token holders? That's a regulatory question, right? We need market structure bill likely to pass. We need more clarity there. But we definitely want to benefit, the long-term growth of W. So that was a lot, but in summary, it's very simple, like 3 components. And the idea is that we address a lot of the problems that the W holders have been talking to us about for the past 6 months.
No, this is super interesting. And yeah, many things to say on the 3. Just maybe on the first one is one thing that I think many do not maybe get it at the first is what it actually entails to launch a token when you have XYZ participants in your network. So for example, like the PEF network, we have like Virtue, which must be a top 3 worldwide broker trading firm. They trade pretty much any asset on earth, arguably, especially TradFi. This is a publicly listed company that contributes data to the PEF network, etc. So they get token rewards, token grants, etc. And just having this type, or if you want to have this type of entities, institutions, part of your network, it kind of requires like specific thing, or like making them comfortable. And 4 or 5 years ago, like it's not like today, Trump era, second time, where pretty much you can do YOLO, or now there is like no rules, I love you. So
crime season.
So it's not that easy to launch a token. And yeah, and I'm in, like you mentioned, this FTX era. I mean, was going up, so as long as it go up, no one complains.
Yeah.
Only the hater complain. So launching a token is not that easy if you want big shots, especially if they're regulated, etc. Of course, if you don't need those guys, don't care, you can just mint a token, run points, airdrop. Who cares about OFAC list? Like one could go about it this way. So that's very, very hard. Unlocks also, it's very, it depends, because like we have now a mix of, is it just a layer 1, layer 2, where like, do you need like constant inflation? What's your protocol? So it's, you kind of have everyone, like projects kind of get treated all the same altogether. Oh, they do buyback. Oh yeah, because they generate constant fees, whatnot. While for some project, it might be, I don't know, weekly revenue paid out, etc. So yeah, tokens very hard, especially if you don't want to be in jail as a public founder. and have good companies on it.
We don't want that. We don't want that.
On the I'm forgetting the last 2 points, but I think that's like the first one's very important. Into like, luckily we might enter a new kind of era where whenever you launch a token, it doesn't feel like you shot 100 people. So that's, I think, is very cool. What's the second point he brought?
It was
Utility.
yield.
Oh,
Yeah,
yield. Yeah.
yield, staking yield. Yeah.
So yeah, this is also staking for staking. What's the point? Another thing is I am very anti. Then again, if the Peth community and I want to push forward, I mean, I'll voice against and vote against myself with my token. It's like subsidizing voting, like
Yeah.
paying yield for voting. I'm not a fan of this because you just have people that vote. They don't care so much about the output. But if you manage to, so yes, and as a Wormhole delegate, I have like couple millions and think W delegated
You
to me.
do
So,
actually, Mark. You're one of the bigger delegates. I forgot about that.
so I'll talk to the W's in the chats. If you want incentivized voting, I will likely be against, or you have to convince me. But no, find like to bring yield, proper yield, and not just inflation. You actually need that like protocol to be used and revenue. And crypto is hard because every 3-4 years you have, if not even less now or more often, a new competitor, new token. He has 50% of its supply to attack you, like Sushi Swap against Uniswap. Every 2 years you have pretty much new competitor that has infinite money, or not infinite, free money to give out. And bunch of time you talk to very early, very nascent project, they're like, oh, you ask me to pay for Wormhole, I have XYZ paying me to use them. So you kind of enter a very, I mean, it's very sharp, very hard ecosystem, but I think it's very important to have like, generate revenue and pay this out in some way, somewhere or another. Like Pith-wise, we went like, what's valuable within Pith? Voting in governance, yes, of course. Otherwise, everything's stalled. But what's even more powerful was introducing this, what you mentioned, integrity staking. If the price feed wrong, go complain, go get the publisher slashed, get paid out. Like non-legal terms, akin to an insurance kind of. There's value here, and there's value, there's risk. Here's your yield. If there is no risk, what's the point of yield?
Exactly.
And and the last one was
the reserve.
The reserve. When
so it's the same as point two, arguably. It's whether you pay out as staking rewards, as XYZ feature on top, or reserve. So here again, I'm not sure. I agree with you that it feels that now the standard is if you don't buy back 99%, you're shorting your own token almost.
We're taking a risk here, right? Because that's kind of like what we're signing up for. But I think we're just going to take a more measured approach. And the other thing too is there's an interesting delta in the market. I was commenting on some before, Mark, but like most protocols can actually buy back that meaningful amount, right? They're not making like insane amounts of money besides Pump, besides Hyperliquid, besides maybe like one or two other applications like Jito or Axiom Trade or something. And so there's like an interesting separation where the top 5 can buy back a lot and then everyone else really can't. But I'm starting to see smaller buybacks be looked at as just a positive signal. Okay, you're like long-term focus. A good example is Resolve protocol. Like the I think you guys work with them, but the stablecoin. I saw they did like a 66 USD 66K USD buyback the other day, and I think it was like received well, right? So I think like we're getting a little bit out of the sticker shock buyback, except if you're a DAT, I guess. But like the sticker shock to more of just like wanting to see some consistency around, reinvesting in the protocol when you can. I think is mainly what we're going for, at least to start.
Exactly. It's like DAO, you have to put yourself into the DAO shoes. Do you want all your money to be in the single token, whether it's a stable or your own token? Like each protocol's DAO is already overexposed, arguably, to its own token. So that's why I'm kind of anti the buyback your own token. Like, would you?
That is interesting. That's an interesting take.
Like people are usually, whenever from the association perspective, like, okay, you deal, okay, we're gonna take this service. They still like we're paying in fiat or in USDC. They don't accept PayF as payment. So people are kind of like, okay, the DAO operates by itself. No one needs to get paid. Just token goes up and everything will be fine.
Well, I will say there's a difference, right? There's like, I think you're talking a little bit more about a DAO treasury. I would say the reserve and the DAO treasury is slightly different. And the why is, I agree with you wholeheartedly on what you're saying about like the DAO and diversification. I think reserves, even though they're like branded as kind of reserves or buyback thing, they're just a how can I explain this? Like a point in time. Like the idea behind these reserves, the idea for what token holders want is eventually that's shared, right? Like, and I think there's this worry, which is, you know, is fair. It's like, well, as soon as you share revenue, that is a dividend, and therefore it's a security and so on, right? So there's like this regulatory concern. So I think what's happening is like, until there's that clarity, this buyback meta is a stopgap to then distributing all of that yield. Think about Uniswap. Like Uniswap has had like uni staking or whatever, and like waiting to turn the fee switch on for so long. And so I think there's a slight difference between like a DAO treasury that where like you need to diversify long term, and then these aren't supposed to be like actually that long. I think it's supposed to be you get the money as soon as we can share. You get the money, you buy it back, and you distribute. You buy it back and you distribute. It's just a question of if we can do the distribute leg.
Maybe I didn't read the fine prints enough. So the reserve, is it done at the DAO? It's done at the foundation level.
Right now, it's the foundation. Yep. Right now, it's the foundation. Yeah. And then the idea would be that like a DAO treasury or an on-chain treasury is separate. And that would be like your classic to what you're saying is like paying things out, diversifying, getting some in USDC, ETH, BTC, etc. But yeah.
And for this reserve, it is W bought back on the market from, I believe, on-chain and off-chain revenues. Can you enlighten me a bit on what do those revenues? I mean, what are those revenues coming from? Like, how does Wormhole monetize the products live on today?
Absolutely. So there's probably like 5 revenue streams. I would say 2 are off to the races. The first one is portal front end fees. So that one's pretty simple, right? We started testing portal front end fees. We're gonna all start alpha for this. We're gonna start offering same chain swaps. We're gonna do more in that regard. And so like portal as a front end is gonna be, I think, very valuable, and using it and kind of staying all in one place there's a small fee there, and that's been on largely for some time. The second one that a lot of people don't think about as much, and you guys maybe can relate to this in some way or another, but is network expansion. So when we expand to a new chain, there's a lot of new L1s, a lot of new L2s. Wormhole's become pretty valuable for chain success, right? If you think about if you're a new chain, like what are some of the things that I can like ensure I'm successful? Number one, you probably want, if you can, like a native stablecoin or a stablecoin that everyone's going to use. You want a DEX, you want a money market, and you need a way to get the liquidity in, and that's typically Wormhole, and you need an Oracle, right? So Wormhole, that's a point of value creation, or we're adding so much that we can take some as well. So we actually make a lot of revenue via network expansion as well, and this is, I think, a lot of infrastructure teams do this, so this model isn't like that crazy. And then some of the other ones that we haven't really turned on quite yet is relayer fees. So like that's a back end mechanism for every time we will complete the transaction on behalf of the user, obviously if they sign. And then there are a few other ones that are kind of like staking-esque related. But what our goal is to essentially, like, we have 5 kind of revenue product lines, and obviously our internal goals are increase volume, increase revenue, right? And so we want to continue to make those go as high as possible, and then share that back, to the extent as much as we can, while operating into many years in the future, share that back with token holders. But those are kind of the core ways, which is why I talk about portal as being an important piece to this, right? Which historically, we were joking earlier, was very much so an afterthought for us because we were scared to touch it from a regulatory perspective.
We have the new Wormhole tagline. R-I-R-I-V. No, increase volume, increase. You're gonna compete
Yeah,
with
yeah,
Solana.
yeah. Increase volume, increase revenue. I think, yeah, that's the, yeah. That's it. But yeah, I mean, we touch so much. There's so many actually opportunities to make revenue. I think like there's like yield strategies you can do where you share yield, and part of the yield you share with any sort of asset issuer across chains. You can pocket as either a foundation or a DAO or a reserve. So there's a lot. And again, most of crypto, I think, is such a prioritization exercise. You can do so much, but you can't do a lot well. And you always have to like prioritize on what's going to give you the most ROI.
Very cool. No, and that's super, I mean, super helpful because I've seen a few reserves from other protocols where they tell you about the revenues that are accumulating and so on, but they don't tell you where. So that's always good to have some, or at least some good idea of what's happening. So it feels like we're talking a lot about Portal. What are we cooking there? What's next? Is this the big next focus on your end?
Yeah, to me, you can't be bullish enough on Portal. Portal's probably one of the things that I'm personally. I'm excited about everything. Like all aspects of the business work heavily in, but I'm very very excited about Portal. I think we've done an insane amount of work to make it on parity with a lot of what else is out there. And now the next step, we had to get it to parity, right? It used to be dog shit. I'll be the first to say that. I used to get DMs from everyone under the sun on Twitter being like, what the fuck is this? Why isn't it working? Where's my trains? All this stuff, right? I was glorified customer support for probably 2 years. I feel like Mark, you can relate. So our first step was to go from like bad to bring it to parity. We are at parity now, I would say. And now it's go from parity to being the best at the core business we do, which is bridging and transfers, right? That's I view that as a core business now. Like Wormhole's expanding so much, that's a core business line is transfers and business, or I'm sorry, transfers and bridging. And then next is to add additional products. So I've said a few times, same chain swaps. Like if you're already on Portal and you're bridging, why not also do a same chain swap or a cross chain swap? So that's already, we're rolling those out. We haven't officially announced anything, but it's live. So it's kind of a soft launch. And then from there, I mean, think about Infinex, think about DeFi.app, think about Axiom Trade. Like those are all really good examples of like where Portal could go, because it's about owning the relationship with the user. And that's actually where you can get the most value. And so we're really excited about like the brand that is Portal, where it can go, the team behind it. I mean, you know, Wormhole Labs, you guys are familiar. It's like pretty much a spin out of Jump. You know, the team has grown quite a bit since then, actually a lot. But their core focus really right now is Portal. And I think that's like a big shift from what it has been in the past. So we're excited about where that product can go, and I'm open to feedback. So my DMs are still open. Hopefully, it's not like as much like it's dog shit, but more like, hey, this was cool, but you should try this. But yeah, I think it's going to be one of the bigger things for Wormhole in 2026. I can't believe I'm saying 2026 now, but it is almost Q4. It's Q4 in how long? 6-7 days. That's crazy.
It feels it's kind of also the excluding chains, I guess. It's kind of the story of every protocol / product. At some point, you even infra, as because for example, PEF, like from our perspective, initially was just price feeds. Then one of the price feed user was like, "Don't you have?" They call us the Oracle. So every Oracle is the same to many people. Like, oh, don't you have a randomness protocol? Can't I, like VRF, whatnot, any type of random?
Yeah.
You're like, I mean, no, we don't, but it's not that complicated. You like, and for example, Entropy was born in like 3 weeks. Like it's
I
not
remember
that
Entropy. I remember using it with Infinex for what was it, like the box thing that they had?
yeah, the crate run, and now you have the bull run. And arguably Infinex still, I think they are like 50% of Entropy usage. They do at the apex on average, they were doing 50K requests per day of randomness, so one every 2 seconds on average, which is pretty crazy. But overall, the whole thing came from a trading protocol. Was like, oh, I want to do a raffle. Can't I just like this VRF is too slow, too expensive. You've done price feeds faster than them and cheaper than them. Can't you do the same for randomness? Boom, entropy came to life just based on user feedback. While we have no special capabilities, like yeah, you need couple cryptographer, etc., and good coding. And same with Express Relay. So Express Relay now today you might know it as like this Solana-ish RFQ. So if you know
Yep.
CoSwap, it's kind of this, but on Solana. That first launch with Camino has been like integrating in a few places, and it was the same. It was like, all right, you do price feeds.
Yep.
I need to liquidate this position. All your price feeds come from big institution. Can the big institution take over this like underwater position? And it's just like, it just feels we're entering like back to Web 2. Google, Apple, Amazon,
Yeah.
people want one single source
Yeah.
of like service.
Yeah. And it's interesting because like a lot of people start at different parts, right? Like some people will start at the front end and then they'll build down. So like I'll give an example. Uniswap, front end now as a chain, right? It started as kind of like an app and it wanted to build down, have more control. And then you'll have, I think maybe Wormhole is a good example of like starting lower level infrastructure and then building products and services on top to the point where like there's a front end now as well, right? And so I actually think that what's scarce is in crypto a lot of times is like a good brand reputation and a good team. And if you obviously you should have capital, and there's just going to be a overlapping of a lot of things over time, and we've already started to see this. So this isn't like a hot take at all, but I think M&A is going to happen more and more and more for all of these teams that were pretty early on built, like serious early on builders within crypto, because there is just so much overlap happening, where like and so much overlap that it's bound to make sense sometimes, right? Like, oh my God, you're doing so much of like the flows here, or you're doing so much of our business here, like it just makes sense to kind of like come together and do it. So I think we're going to see more and more of that, which I'm always interested to watch. And obviously I tried to buy a competitor's bridge recently, or Wormhole did. So like we're actively involved in that space as well. But I think this part of the industry, or this like part of this like of crypto's history, is really interesting because of that.
Do you put Patagonia vest when you go on those M&A calls? Or?
Yes, actually. No, I saw someone have crypto swag. I forgot who it was. It was actually really cool, but it was like the Patagonia logo, and then they changed the word. Did you guys see that? I saw it on crypto Twitter somewhere. I was like, that's so close to Patagonia's logo. Like, you guys might get sued. I don't know if I would do that.
But that's actually a perfect segue, because now I'm curious. You guys are working with a lot of institutions or TradFi. What are the latest cool things that you've guys been working on or partnering with, that we might have heard or not of?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think like I talk about these names so much that I feel like people get desensitized to them, but like it's no small feat that in 1 year we kind of cornered the market, and that like really with two of the biggest tokenization partners, which is Centrifuge and Securitize. We have BlackRock, Apollo, Van Eck, Hamilton Lane, KKR, etc., using Wormhole. So that in and of itself, I'm proud of the team, and also it's just we were able to execute well there. I think what's more exciting outside of like portal stuff is more nuanced, right? It's more of like, as you work with these institutional partners, as I'm sure you guys know, they start to have more like custom and very like custom requirements that will get you to build new things. I think one thing we're really focused on right now is, we used to think about asset issuance through the lens of issue an asset on a chain. What we're exploring is like, how do you issue an asset compliantly and like across 5 to start? And there's like a lot of like technical work being done there. And then like, what does it look like for it to be official versus unofficial deployments? And then like, what's the KYC? How do you manage the whitelist? So we're doing a lot of work with stablecoin issuers that I would say are more on like the institutional side. and then also like these money market funds, etc. So we've got a lot of the partners and the brands, which is good. And now we're just continuing to build our product suite out for them. But it's a lot of kind of, I would say, not as much fun crypto DeFi stuff, more kind of compliant institutional stuff. But it's necessary, and it's the stage of growth that we're in now. Yeah, yeah. That's why I would say it's probably the most kind of relevant top of mind thing, because we need more assets. More assets on Wormhole goes towards those two things we talked about: increase revenue, increase volume. What about you guys? I'm curious. I know obviously we have Pith Pro. Maybe that was the big thing, but you guys obviously have the biggest, I would say, institutional or government announcement of the quarter, at the very least, maybe this half of the year. What are you guys focused on there?
It's and couple of, and I mean, first I'll start with a bit same stance of thing you said around, just by continuously saying over the year, okay, we got BlackRock, Pith, like we had, let's say, Jane Street, Virtue, all these big shots like 4 years ago, and after you
Yeah, you've
almost
had them for a while. That's so true.
there's
Sorry,
no
go
one
ahead.
else to get. Like, or there are a few, but they're very hard to get. But still, always cooking people. No, the big, I think, focus has been, and now it's like, distributing that data off chain. Like, while and Pierre, myself, and yourself are very kind of on-chain maxis, etc.
Yep.
Arguably, the off-chain world is still 1,000 times bigger, if not 1,000,000 times bigger.
Yeah.
So very much penetrating more into the distribution, like,
Yep.
like, I mean, as I said to my parents, like, the goal is Spotify for financial data. Like, you just have one subscription for everything. So it's very much putting this into a reality. And then, like, how do we really continue, like, become Spotify or have all the assets on Earth on the Pith network, is go more locally. So initially, like, and as you mentioned, like, all our roots are mostly kind of US, let's say, or stem from US companies. Like, well, we still don't have, let's say, officially onboarded any US bank. Always the goal, always the day-to-day hustle, but it's also beyond, like, France, Europe, etc. So very much like, if we want to have 100,000 price feeds, whether you trade a penny stock in South Korea, in the Philippines, or in Argentina, like, we'll have to onboard XYZ bank in those countries, exchanges in those countries. So it's kind of, it's going to be the same job over and over, but it's just going to be like more localized, I guess. That enables to very much fulfill the vision of, you need financial data, just purchase yourself a Pith API. And whether you want US stocks, US bonds, ETFs, French whatnot, like, you have, or crypto, you have this. So after, I mean, and as you work, and you must know, working with institution, it's lots of NDA signing, etc. So always cannot spill the bean, but it's very much like, it takes time. Like, from interacting with a bank, it's pretty fun, because you can imagine it as a 40-step journey, and pretty much you need 40 wins in a row. You need 40 years in a row. If you get one no, whether the first or the last or in between, you kind of lost.
You start again. It's crazy. It's crazy.
So it takes time.
Takes time. No, go ahead. Sorry.
No, so it's very much get more institutions, because we need all the data in the world, and we want all of them to use that. So it sounds almost small, as it's very simple. We need more data, and we want to give it to more people. But after, the thing is, because I guess it's also true for you too, is our team is insanely lean, or at least, for example, the Peace Data Association, which are, and like, mostly, for example, our footprint is on the governance, is on the marketing, like growing the network, growing this open source permissionless network, permissionless to use. We're like 10 to 15 people. Duo Labs, which is one of the contributor, mostly like code or some business expansion, it's also not that many people. So it's always, the goal is actually build stuff, maybe be a bit slower in the market, but build stuff so that will be able to scale 1,000x versus everyone. And I
Yep.
think this is what we managed to do with you. Whenever PIV V2 came up, we introduced this pool model. And in
Yep.
1 year, we expanded to 100 chains. Just
Insane. That's actually insane.
not because we have 1,000 people deploying contracts and monitoring stuff. It was arguably 1 or 2 guys deploying to 100 chains. So it's do things well, even if it takes more time, so that once it's done, you have no problem of distribution or reliability, resilience, etc. So it's kind of nitty-gritty work. But yeah, Pierre, anything more exciting than me blabbing?
No, and what I'd add, and I'm not into the tech or the big, or I'm not talking to the banks at least. But it's from my perspective, it's a lot of with these lean teams prioritization, where as much as PIF Pro is now live and institutions can get an API key, you still have a bunch of DeFi and on-chain stuff that is super important, hyperliquid, and so on. Like, cannot let this, dexes that do huge volumes and potentially with PIF having a role there. You can't just leave that out. So it's in return you need to be super focused on what you're building, and it's super interesting to see all the little pieces interact and focus on the key core or where we see the value will be at in the next 6 to months to 10 years.
And
you got to
one
work
thing-
smart and hard. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
And one thing I'd be actually keen after to ask you, so I don't know if I'm going to rug some of Pierre's question, is around the governance and the DAO. Because one thing I've been saying, my whole job is to put myself out of a job, arguably. So that network is making, like, as LXP or however it wants to function. But arguably, we should all see the DAO as a company that will operate the protocol. And I think while it was very important 3 years ago to not get sued, and now it feels way less important. It's still, I mean, I went into crypto because I don't like the traditional world, let's say, having this more transparency, etc. So there's also going to be a ton of work to do. Again, not very sexy, but paramount to have a great DAO. Like, your DAO needs to budget revenue, budget expenses, like operate as a decentralized company. And this can introduce so much friction, reduce your go-to-market by so much. It has to be done like super well. So PIF, like, we have our DAO, we have elected council. It looks like a Western Republic where you elect your delegate power, elect people that exert their power, which is working. Is it the perfect state? Likely not. So that we need to, at least personally, want to reach that perfect state, if that even exists. Keen to hear your view on like DAO governance, and if you want to introduce a bit the like Wormhole governance. What, like, you have delegates, what does it do, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a pretty basic delegate model, and you're able to stake onto a delegate or delegate to a delegate your whatever your holdings are, your W holdings. I think I'm of a few thoughts when it comes to governance. One, I think first and foremost, I embody the same ethos that the idea of the DAO is that eventually it controls the underlying protocol that is Wormhole, and then there's just tons of things being built on top of it. I kind of think like maybe like Solana, for instance. However, I don't think a lot of Solana is controlled by the DAO. The competing thought is infrastructure in particular. Actually, I think crypto in general is going into a hyper competitive era. It already has been, and the last thing that if I'm an investor in anything, the last thing that I would want is for them to not be able to be competitive for something that they could avoid. And I don't mean avoid governance altogether. I mean being smart about how you decentralize and over what time horizon, because I've seen in crypto many times protocols migrate to the DAO, and the protocol then either kind of fades into the distance or is just not able to compete as much. I think I don't want to call any protocols. I work with all of them out in particular, but like, the DeFi protocols from the 2021, 2020 era, 2022, if you will. That's like, I mean, Compound's a good example, right? Like Compound was kind of just pushed to a DAO. Now it's like, look at Aave compared to Compound, right? Like it used to be like this. Now Aave has what, 45 billion in TVL? Like it's insane. I know Aave has a DAO as well, but like it seems like it's kind of still largely controlled by a lot of the labs and the foundation. And we could probably argue the nuances here, but I think the thing that I feel responsible for is that Wormhole can be as competitive as possible and win as much market share as possible. And I think that it's important to balance how much decisions go to the DAO versus more of a labs foundation collaboration that knows the protocol, that thinks about these problems a lot, and then is highly, highly incentivized to do what's best to win. So that's maybe how I feel about it. Like our plan is to continue to roll out more and more decision making. I think there's a proposal up right now, but like we want to push governor limits to the which is like rate limiting there. We want to push a few more things, but I want to be very careful in how we do it. And I would hope, and I would imagine, and maybe I'm wrong, that the majority of W holders might think the same. It might be like the best chance we have of Wormhole being successful and winning is not if we're clogged by this, quagmire of just decentralized back and forth and decision making. And candidly, last point I'll make, so much of it is bullshit, right? Like the Stargate acquisition done via the DAO was governance theater. That was just I feel bad for the STG holders because they got a horrible deal. They could have got 50 million more USD if they had run an actual fair bidding process. And so that's obviously I feel quite strongly, but I'd like to think I hold the core ethos that I eventually, to maybe your point, Mark, is like I always want to be involved in Wormhole success, but like I have less and less control in the decision making by design. But I also want to make sure that those that are really working on Wormhole a lot still have control because they're incentivized to make sure it's successful.
Yeah,
it's hard.
Interesting. And we're coming up not too close, not too far from the hour. So I have two now, I guess, unrelated to Wormhole questions. First one is, what is exciting you in the DeFi in the space right now? What are you looking at and paying attention to?
Fogo? No, just kidding. I love Fogo. No, two things mainly.
The Fogo Fest today looked pretty entertaining. I have only seen a few images. It looked pretty fun.
Yeah, I saw some of the KOLs just getting after it. I'd say two things. Like I use all DeFi protocols. I've historically not used perps that much. But in the past year, I've been using perps more, and I'm excited to see the race to kind of zero. I think it's gonna be interesting, all these perp decks starting to compete. And I think we're gonna, usually when there's a lot of competition, we get really great products out of it for users. So I'd say that's one area that I'm actively working in, and I'm interested. I'm using Lighter and some of these other ones, for instance. The other thing is RWA, specifically in DeFi. This I'm focused on a lot and consider myself pretty far along the curve of in terms of knowledge within the space around this. We work with a lot of RWAs, but I want to see more and more of them being used in DeFi. For instance, going from I have fiat to I want to loop a RWA position on Morpho is a multi-day headache of a journey still. And I think there's a lot of innovation that can happen to make it better. It's possible. It's just still a shitty process, if we're being honest, but I think it can get better fast. And so I'm very interested in how RWAs can be used more in DeFi, going from permission to permissionless environments. And I think that will be, I think that'll be interesting because you'll be able to adopt a lot more users into the space that may want to hold money market funds and not fucking Sol or something like a crypto asset that they aren't familiar with. So those two things I'm excited for, and then chains, Monad, and Fogo, just speaking bluntly.
Is there something you want to see less of?
Ooh, that's a good question. That's a really good question.
I have my personal answer, but I'm rugging your business, kind of. Stable coins. We have too many stable coins already.
Okay. I don't know if you're gonna get that though, but I could see that. Honestly, I want to see crypto Twitter be a little bit more of a. This sounds so lame and boomer of me, but I want to revert back to optimism a bit more. I feel CT used to be such a cool place of like, here are these cool ideas, and people more of like celebrating wins. And I feel like now it's just so like zero sum, and I just don't have as much fun. It's important to be active on it for anyone that runs protocols, but I just don't have as much fun. It's just it's a difficult space. And so I would love to see less of that and more of it being, I don't want like stupid optimism, right? Like I don't want people being fake, but just not like, I feel like now people just engagement farm fighting and PvP stuff because it's what gets them the most views, and it's a bit exhausting. So I would like to see less of that.
It's like the tweet now meme. Oh, I love waffles, and the reply is, oh, you're hating pancakes.
Yes, dude. That exactly embodies what I'm talking about.
Cool. And one last that usually my recurrent co-host ask all guests: if you were to look for or get into crypto and look for a job today, with all your experience, what would be the one advice you give yourself?
Great question. Everything comes down to the value you can provide. I think you can provide value easier if you focus. And this is all like, again, I know it seems profound, but focus on one thing. Become an expert on one thing to where your voice matters and you can provide value. Because that's usually what people make decisions based on, right? If they're hiring someone, they need someone that's really good at, I don't know, let's say you're a CT, like you're a good memer. You focus on really good memes, you build a great account with memes. Or let's say like a stablecoin so fucking well. Like you know all the data, you know how they work, the multiple categories, prediction markets, right? Like we're seeing like some people on CT that just become obsessed with prediction markets. Then they get hired by Kalshi. Then they get hired by Polymarket. So I would just say become obsessed and curious with one niche. And then once you feel like you are, and you're never going to fully feel like you're the expert because imposter syndrome is a real thing. But once you start to feel like, okay, I'm reading things and I know more than some of these people on Twitter that I'm reading about, then go and say, okay, now I want to go try to get a job here, try to get a job there. But until you can provide unique value, it's only going to be harder and harder to get the best protocol's attention. So I would just say, find a niche, be curious, and just dive fully into that and ignore the rest of the noise. It's probably a little bit more high level than tactical, but I think will unlock a lot for people who can actually do it and focus.
I think Mark would just pretty much add read docs to this and become an expert.
I mean, very true everything Robinson said. But now it's almost you have the opposite of the like. It's am I stuck in this matrix of whether it's the Oracle world or you on the interrupt, and you're like, frick, I would not be. Tomorrow, let's say I need to go to, a Polymarket, a pure consumer-facing retail app. I would be so out of my depth, it would be crazy.
Yeah. But it's because you have your niche.
Any other questions? I don't have. I think I'm good. Anything you want to share, Shale, before we end this stream, Robinson?
No, I'll just say I appreciate you guys having me on. I know I can ramble sometimes, but hopefully the audience found some of it insightful. And yeah, I mean, W 2.0 is big. If anyone has questions, they can DM me on Twitter. I think we did a good job of listening to the community, but we can always miss things. So would love to learn more. And yeah, other than that, thanks for the time, guys. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Robinson. So yeah, guys, you heard. Send feed pics to Robinson in DMs. Oh, sorry, no, feedback. But no, Robinson, thanks for the time. And yeah, catch you soon.
See you guys.
That was a good one. Another one.
I can see now. We see the Pythia on my.
Oh yeah, I can see the Pythia, a Mad Lad sticker. But no, there was a really cool one. Very excited about what's coming and what Wormhole guys are doing. So very cool. And I think you mentioned before we started, or before we had a Robinson on, we had the Pyth Pro announcement, but we also had the community, that that went through governance. So if you want to touch upon what this means in a few words.
Big days to be big week even to be a Pythian. So yeah, I mean it was pretty much the two proposals going live approximately at the same time. Overall, it just ease and you get more participation as people don't always go and check for vote. But this week, the community council of the PythDAO got his second term approved or extended and funded, because at the end of the day, we're all after those sweet Pyth tokens. TLDR is the community council is a 7 elected Pythian from 6 months ago that are running tons of activities within the Pyth community, mostly on Discord, but way beyond, like Pyth Talk, Pyth TikTok is going to be a thing. So if you like brain rot, go check Katie and the same Boris. Very important. But no, this whole community council vote was to grant at say 1.5 million Pyth token. That's close to $200K US worth of token to run for the next 6 months of activities. Pierre might know a couple.
I'll just put this one out there.
Pierre maybe knows a bit more some activities, but it goes from content creation, written, Kaito rewards.
There's a ton. We have, I think, an artistic hub now that is getting, ramping up activities. And you mentioned Boris, Merceau, Plank. I'm gonna forget a bunch of the Pythians that are actually just creating some very funny, fun brain rot videos for TikTok. But yeah, anything that happens in the Discord, poker nights. We have market minds. I mean, all the council members are really doing amazing stuff, and by extension our Chirons, who are more in the trenches of the community and doing a bunch of cool stuff. So there's and I think Chop talked about this last week, and he said there's infinite opportunities for you guys to get involved, do stuff for the network and be rewarded, and then for just the ones that want to have fun and create a few memes, you can do that, and you get some rewards, some PPs as they are called within the community. So yeah, another great news for the community, and which is awesome to see, because the content on X, in the Discord and other social platforms is really amazing to see, and gives me a ton of energy to work those extra long hours and do cool stuff.
And actually, one just came to mind now, but the Pyth entity. This is amazing. So even if you're an engineer, developer, front end, on-chain smart contract, etc., like arguably there's full-time job available not only at the Peace Data Association and Duro Labs and many other companies. There's actually full-time job available within the PythDAO through the community council. The Pyth entities, the idea for the Pythians, because Pyth is a oracle available on so many chains, interacting with so many DeFi protocol. What if it could be your profile across these chains? Like, of course, tracking all your Pyth rewards, your Pyth achievements, but also why not enabling rewards from other partners of the Pyth protocol? And maybe just a little last shout for Aventis.
That was my example I was going to bring up, but
do it then.
No, and for example, we have those amazing protocols that use Pyth data and that feel the support that the community, Pyth, and the team brings them. And when it's time for TGE on some of these protocols, they're like, hey, how could we reward the Pythians? And so this Pyth entity could be the easy gateway for them to say, hey, let me plug in this platform, this I'm not sure technically how this works, but hey, let me grab a bunch of those Pythonians holders. Let me grab on the top contributors from the Pyth network that have amassed the most PPs. And they do their own sauce, and they could say, hey, there's a certain amount of Pyth community members that may be eligible for our airdrop, so go check it out. And so I think it was a lucky 500 Pythonians for Aventis, we had a nice little I think it was 4,000 tokens or 3,000. I'm not sure exactly, but that's, I mean, that doesn't hurt at all. So that's a super exciting project that's been undertaken by a couple of the Pythians in the community. So it's super exciting. I don't have anything else except follow the Pyth account here if you are not following it. Follow the Pyth ecosystem account as well. Trying to do some cool video content on there and talk about our partners as much as possible. If you're on YouTube, like and subscribe. And that's about it. Thanks, Mark, for the time, and was a really good one. Next week, I don't know who's coming. I need to get to work on that.
Get some suggestions in the comments.
Yes, exactly. Send me your best, and I'll DM and bother them. Wait, what is this? When beyond the price with Mother, I've tried a bit, and I've stopped. Too much channels to go through to get Iggy on there. I wished, but also got some flack for it. They were like, "Oh, token is down." I don't care. Iggy would be pretty cool on Beyond the Price.
You had to launch the Pepito token with Sahil.
Yes, yes, exactly. I squeeze all the Pyth partners. I love it. Okay, now very cool. Well, Pythians, we're almost 10 minutes over the line. Thank God Chop is not here. Would have killed me for overrunning. But if you're in Korea, maybe KBW, there's still maybe a couple events happening. Token 2049 in Singapore, a bunch of stuff happening. And I think there'll be a bunch of Pythians in Abu Dhabi for Breakpoint in December. So check out our socials. Everything's, we share as much as possible. And if you're not in the Discord, jump in Discord as well. That's it. Thank you all for coming, and have a fantastic Wednesday.